covered dozens of weapons, mortars, machine guns, grenades, hidden amongst UNRWA uniforms, believe it or not. UNRWA uniforms. Look, this intelligence haul led soldiers to locate tunnel shafts and significant tunnel routes. 6 terror tunnels, 6 kilometers long, were located and destroyed. These underground tunnels contain branch tunnel systems with terrorist hideouts and command and control centers. And all the while, IDF are discovering weapons and more intelligence documents. In Nuseirat, Israel's Air Force are using precise munitions and have struck many terrorists actually engaged in terror activities and using, very often, UNRWA schools as a cover. We've said this before, but Hamas and Islamic Jihad systematically violate international law, exploit civilian structures and Gazans as human shields for terror attacks against Israel. Now an update from COGAT and their work coordinating aid into Gaza over the last 24 hours. 331 trucks laden with humanitarian goods went into Gaza, 275 trucks via Kerem Shalom and 56 trucks via Erez. The trucks came from Israel, our port of Ashdod, Egypt, and also Jordan. 6 tankers of cooking gas, 31 pallets with 5,500 tons were airdropped over Gaza. In terms of collection, 78 trucks are awaiting collection on the Gazan side of Erez. 106 aid trucks were collected from the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom, which is a positive move. But of course, our daily reminder remains in place that over 1,150 trucks are still awaiting collection from the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom as the hapless UN gets its act together. As part of our continuous effort to facilitate Gazans' medical needs, 30,000 vaccines for diphtheria and tetanus from UNICEF were transferred to Gaza. Over 2 million vaccines for other diseases, such as whooping cough, hepatitis B, measles, mumps and rubella, and more, have gone in over the last few months. Critical infant supplies, also from UNICEF, went in last week. 8 trucks of 18 tons of baby formula, good for infants for over 6 months, have also gone in. 90 tons of biscuits with nutritional supplements have also entered Gaza, but we won't stop expanding our efforts to facilitate all kinds of humanitarian responses, including for vulnerable populations. So that's the end of our briefing today. I will now take your questions, which you should put in the chat together with your news outlet. The first question here, can you just scroll to the top there? Please scroll to the top of the questions. Thank you very much. Yeah, first question here is from Joel Pollock at Breitbart News. First 3 questions here. Do you expect the new French legislature to push for recognition of a Palestinian state? Thank you for that question, Joel. Obviously, that's a question for the French Parliament in terms of whatever future moves it makes. They had their election, the second round of their election on Sunday, and I understand that in accordance with the French Constitution and the French government, they are deciding the current makeup of their new government, and that's a matter for them. But when it comes to recognizing a Palestinian state, let me just say this. Any country that wishes to go down this road should ask themselves 2 very, very important questions. Number 1, does it support the peacemakers? Does it encourage peacemaking? And number 2, or does it support the terrorists, the Hamas terrorists that murdered, raped our people and still hold 120 of them in their terror dungeons? That's the simple equation which any country that wishes to go down this route needs to ask themselves. Secondly, your second question is, given the success of Israel's military operation in Rafah, what would you say to those who warn that it would involve an unacceptable rate of civilian casualties? Thank you very much for that question, Joel. So we think the Israeli government believes that it has done a remarkable job when it comes to defeating the terrorist scourge. And that has been more true in Rafah. Look, I think that our enemies know how to fight us. They know that we view human life as precious. You know, Hamas is not upset that part of Gaza is destroyed. I believe that they're upset when more of Gaza is not destroyed. They prefer 10 times more destruction. Hamas are not upset that Gazan civilians have been killed, and we know that we've killed a remarkably low number. They're upset that more Gazans have not been killed. They'd be happy with 10 times more. Hamas are unfortunately willing to bear these costs because it means that the world will come crushing down on Israel as they have done. And to Iran, their backers, you know, they think they figured out how to beat Israel. It's on the media, on BBC, on CNN, and that's not to mention those ones in particular, but on many others. Hamas know that they won't defeat us through terror. They won't defeat us through guerrilla war. They won't defeat us through tank columns. They won't win that way. But through column inches on the BBC and CNN, Hamas and Hezbollah, they're simply immune to the cost to their own people. These jihadi Jew killers are shaping the strategic environment. And so what Israel is left to do is respond to defend itself. But Iran knows that it can use the international media to destroy Israel and also international institutions. Their distorted version of Islam means, for them it means revolution. They want to restore Islam to its perceived place at the top of history and society. Look, it begins with destroying Israel, but we are only a stopgap on the jihadis' route to destroy you. They call us the small Satan. They call the West, the US, other democracies, they call them the great Satan. So for this great enemy, and we are taking them on here in Israel, the world, not just Israel, but the world needs to unite to create a great strategy. It's up to all of us that care about these issues to stand up to this hatred. We believe the IDF has done a remarkable job in Rafah. Slowly, systematically, and with great care and with intelligence, we are going through those tunnels and those terrorist hideouts and the many homes where they hide weapons in civilian areas. And we are taking them apart street by street, house by house, property by property. We're taking them apart and we are being successful. We are smashing this Hamas terrorist scourge. Next question is number 3. Likewise, given that military success, why has Israel been unable to rescue more hostages directly? Thank you very much for that question, Joel. Hostages make up one of our 3 war aims, and it's something which occupies us every single moment of every single day since the October 7th outrage. All of our work and all of our soldiers' determination and all of the government's determination to rid the area of Hamas and to destroy this organization is geared around releasing our hostages. The hostages are in Hamas's hands. It's Hamas's responsibility to release them. It is an international war crime every single moment of every day. 277 days now, 9 months that they are in Hamas's captivity. Okay, so next question from Hannah Julian from the Jewish Press. Hezbollah has released new propaganda video showing drone footage of Israeli military bases on the Golan, making it clear that terrorist organizations have specific information on locations of IDF bases in northern Israel. Can you comment on this? Also, second question, which I will take separately. So on the Golan and Hezbollah, look, we know what Hezbollah is. We know that they are an Iranian proxy. Since October the 7th, October the 8th, to be precise, 6,700 rockets from Hezbollah have rain down on our north. We know that 177,500 dunams of land has been burnt. It's becoming clearer, ever more clearer that Hezbollah, only respond to force. And I want to say this to you, Hannah. Even if Israel reaches an agreement in Gaza, a deal which we want to bring back our hostages, to bring them home, Israel will continue fighting Hezbollah until we bring Hezbollah to reach an agreement and ensure the safe return of Israel's northern communities to their homes. A hostage deal does not bind us in the north. So either way, through diplomatic means or militarily, unless Hezbollah reaches an agreement, this hostage pause, which we are trying, the path we're trying to right now in the south, it does not change. That we will defend ourselves from Iran's aggression, and we will bring our Israeli communities home safely. We know very well what Hezbollah's capabilities are. No one should be in any doubt of that fact. But we are degrading them. We spoke yesterday about 450 of their senior people who have been eliminated. We know exactly how to deal with Hezbollah. Okay, next question I can see here is from David Isaac. The former director of Al-Shifa Hospital has accused Israel of almost daily torture and other such false accusations. Do we have any comment on these and any new development about how he was released? Thank you very much for that question, David. We haven't got anything more to add on that subject, except that we know these are the facts, never mind about his propaganda, lovingly lapped up by international media. We know for a fact that hostages were taken to Al-Shifa Hospital and not for treatment. We know that hostages were killed in Al-Shifa Hospital. We know that hostages were held in Al-Shifa Hospital. We know that in later parts of this war that Hamas took over the hospital and were fighting us from their hospital, from the maternity unit. And you can be pretty sure that it wasn't the midwives that were firing at us from these maternity units. The Prime Minister's made his views very, very clear about this incident, and you can go back and get them from there, which is, I think, a couple of weeks back. Next question from Jim Williams from Zenga. Today in Washington, NATO is convening to celebrate its 75th anniversary. When Israel prevails over Hamas, could it prompt regional talks about forming a Middle Eastern counterpart to NATO where member nations would collaborate to defend against threats from Iran or other potential aggressors? Thank you for that question, Jim. So in an earlier answer, I think I gave a good answer to that question, or an adequate response to that question, and I talked about the international necessity to fight this brand of jihadi Jew hatred, this distortion of Islam, which we are currently facing here. But we're facing it here, but of course, we're only a stopgap unto the West. So I believe that the answer I gave previously would provide an ample answer to that question. Next question from Fred Ager regarding a Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defence Committee which has approved 3 bills to significantly curtail UNRWA activities amid popular anger over the agency's activities following October 7th. The first bill, proposed by Likud MK Boaz Bismuth, would ban UNRWA from operating on Israeli territory. The second, prompted by Israel Beitanu MK Yulia Malinovsky, would label UNRWA as a terrorist organization. And the third, by Yesh Atid MK Ron Katz and lawmaker Dan Eloise, would strip UNRWA personnel of legal immunities. Do you know the date of the discussion and vote in the Knesset's plenary to happen on this bill to vote on, to ban UNRWA? Thank you for that question, Fred. I haven't got that information here, but I will tell you that we've made very, very clear our views on UNRWA. We've been abundantly clear, and we will be releasing further information about the connection, the hand-in-hand, side-by-side connection between UNRWA and Hamas, the many members of UNRWA that participated in the October 7th massacre, the many members of UNRWA that took hostages, and the many members that are members of both organizations. We understand that there is a donors meeting on the 12th of this month, and we are ready to remind potential donors to this failed organization, this organization that has perpetuated the situation in Gaza, that has continued to educate Gazans to hate Jews, to see the killing of Jews as a success, to think of martyrdom as an ambition, and we will remind donor countries of UNRWA's role in all of that. And is there any other? Let's see. Another question from Fred Ager. NYPD, New York Police Department, has released this June a report documenting bigoted incidents showing a surge of 137% compared to 2023, mostly due to Hamas-supported protests in New York. Has Israel been developing and implementing a policy and strategy to counter and mitigate the anti-Semitic propaganda and acts globally? Look, Fred, let me answer that question head on. You know, we the Jewish people are unfortunately used to tragedies. We know that tragedies happen to Jewish people. We are unfortunately used to terrorism because we know that happens to Jews. We're used to that. Slaughter, even slaughter, unfortunately, it happens to Jewish people, and we have, sadly, through the millennia, become used to that. We know that. We've grown up with it. It's the oldest hatred, anti-Semitism, but the idea, as we have seen, in New York and other places as well, of hundreds of thousands marching in solidarity with these murderers in New York City and in other capitals as well, Westerners who should know better marching in solidarity with the murderers. That is the truly disturbing part of this entire episode. Perhaps more disturbing than the murderers themselves and the slaughter themselves. And I think that is what's most worrying, is that many of these people marching end up, unfortunately, in government themselves. We need to stand up to this hatred. Israel is standing up to this hatred locally, but we are, of course, working with other law enforcement organizations to stand up to this hatred wherever it raises its head, anywhere in the world. Another question from Joel Pollack regarding the government and politics. So, Joel, we're not dealing with political questions from here. I'm sure there are politicians that will be happy to deal with that question, Joel. Next, Tim from AFP. President Biden said on May 31st that the peace process he outlined, and which is being discussed now, had been proposed by Israel. Can you confirm this, and why then, with aims of the conflict not achieved, was it considered? Thank you very much for that question. Look, we've been absolutely steadfast in our position against the attempt to halt IDF action in Rafah, which has led Hamas to enter these negotiations. To be clear on our current position, the Prime Minister is continuing to insist on the principles that have already been agreed to by Israel. Firstly, any deal will allow Israel to resume fighting until all of our objectives in this war have been achieved, that there will be no smuggling of weapons to Hamas from Egypt to the Gaza border, and also that there will be no return of thousands of armed terrorists to the northern Gaza Strip, and that Israel will maximize the number of living hostages who will be released from Hamas captivity. The plan that has been agreed to by Israel and which, as you say, has been welcomed by President Biden, it will allow Israel to return the hostages, but without infringing on our other objectives of this war. I hope that's clear, Tim. Okay, are there any other questions? No? Okay, there's no more questions. So with that, thank you for joining us, my friends. There'll be another briefing this time tomorrow. So in the meantime, please do stay safe, and thank you for joining us. Bye-bye now. Tov.